అందరికీ నమస్కారములు. Today is another good day for all of us, that we are going to have another lecture from Nithin Sridhar ji, who taught us Dharma Shastras for 3 days. He is going to teach us and today and tomorrow, taking Mahabharatam as an example. Some of the concepts are covered from Mahabharatam. We are on advanced level 2 course, on certificate course on Sanatana Dharma. We have completed 1 month of course, and in the second month we have completed Vedic mathematics for 6 days, and now we are on again Dharma Shastras on Mahabharatam, and then we'll have Ramayanam. Then we will go with our Vice President Vishalakshi Garu on Sanatana Dharma and Kathopanishad. Then we'll have another 2-3 subjects like Vastu and research topics. So this is how we'll go. First, we will start with reciting Vande Mataram by Gautam Mukherjee ji. We have the privilege today of him singing this song, and then we'll have Prarthana from Surya Prakash ji. So let us request Gautam ji to recite Vande Mataram, please.
Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram, Sujalam Sufalam, Malaja Shitala, Shashamalam Mataram, Vande Mataram. Shubhrodhyosna pulakito yamini, pullakusumita drumodala shobhini, suhasini, sumadhura bhashini, sukhadam varadam mataram, Vande Mataram. Vande Mataram.
ధన్యవాదములండి Gautam ji. Now let us request Surya Prakash ji to chant Prarthana, please.
Yes, sir. Sarvebhyah namaskaraha. Om Sri Mahaganadhapatiye Namaha. Let us observe 1 minute jhanam. Control your mind not to go elsewhere other than the class. Concentrate on your breathing. Now let us chant Omkaram 3 times. Om. 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 Om Ganana Tva Ganapatikum Havamahe Kavim Kavinam Upavasravasamam Jyeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anasunannoti Visida Sadanam Om Sri Mahaganadipataye Namaha Om Matrudevo Bhava Om Pitrudevo Bhava Om Acharya Devo Bhava Om Atithi Bhava Om Prano Devi Saraswati Vaje Deenamavitriyavatu Om Sri Maha Saraswatyai Namaha Gurudeva Gurureva Gati Gurumeva Bhaje Gurunaiva Nahasmi Gurunaiva Sahasmi Namo Gurave Naguro Paramam Sisurasmi Guroho Matirasti Guru Mama Pahi Guru Jnananandamayan Devam Nirmalaspatikakritim Adharam Sarvavidyanam Hayagrivam Upasmahe Shruti Smriti Purana Namalayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Sankaram Lokashankaram Sankaram Sankaracharyam Kesavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kruto Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Iswaro Gururatmeti Murti Veda Vibhagine Vyoma Vajapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Sarvebhyaha Namaskaraha Dhanyavadaha
ధన్యవాదములండి
Dhanyavadalu sir. Dhanyavadalu sir.
Thank you so much. Now we will actually Nithin Sridharji doesn't need any introduction to all of you. He was teaching us Dharma Shastras for 3 days, which are very useful to all of us. And again, today he is with us to cover, the Dharma from Mahabharatam as a foundation stone for our life. So that is the theme is going to teach for these next 2 days. Just to recollect, he is currently the director and chief curator of Center of Moksha Studies, Advaita Academy, dedicated to the dissemination of Advaita Vedanta. And earlier he served as editor of India Facts, a portal of Indian history and culture. He is in Mysore, Karnataka. So we'll welcome Sridharji again and then request him to continue the webinar, please.
Thank you very much, sir. Namaste, Shubhodaya, good morning. Let me begin with a small prayer. Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I'm very happy to be back here, taking another 1 or 2 class. Mahabharata is a very vast text. As the name states, it is the heavier than the heaviest, greater than the greatest text. So obviously 2 sessions or even 20 sessions or even 200 sessions is not enough. to look deep into Mahabharata. One of the persons I most deeply, I am inspired by and I look up to is Professor Vishwa Adluri, and he is a professor who has deeply worked on Mahabharata, and he says that Mahabharata is not the text of the past. Mahabharata is a text of the future. So that is how we should look into Mahabharata. It is a perennial text. It's a text containing the very essence of Sanatana Dharma, culled from Shruti, Smriti, and all other, Dharma Shastra, Kama Shastra, Artha Shastra, Niti Shastra, everything, the essence of everything that Vyas Maharshi ji kindly have put in a very digestible format, a narrative format of Mahabharata. So let me just start my presentation. So being such a vast text, obviously it is only possible for us to touch some ideas, some relevant ideas on Dharma, and that is what I will be sticking to in the next two session, today's and next tomorrow's session. Just it will be, I would like to see these sessions as a continuation of what we were discussing in the Dharma Shastra sessions, because the theme is connected. It is not something new. That the topic is Dharma. Is this are the slides visible?
They are visible.
Okay, great. So for today's and tomorrow's session, I will be relying on a book called The Mahabharata, An Enquiry into Human Condition by Chaturvedi Badrinathji. It's a wonderful book, very lots of thoughts, lot of reflections. So everyone should get this book and go through it. Of course, it's not that everything that every conclusion that Chaturvedi ji makes is a correct conclusion, but it more like he gives lot of material, lot of original references, lot of perspective to reflect upon. Whether we agree with it or not is a very different thing. So I will be using material from this book. Particularly, I will be only referring to only one single chapter from this, and we'll be discussing ideas discussed in that chapter, which is basically again taken from the Mahabharata, from the Shanti Parva, from the Anushasana Parva, from Vana Parva, etc. But before going into it, I just wanted to share a few brief excerpts from the Anukramanika Parva. The Mahabharata opens with this Anukramanika Parva, which speaks about the content of the text, which provides an introduction to how to approach the text. So, the Mahabharata is a self-aware text. So, it not only speaks about what it is, it also is self-aware of how to approach it, how to interpret it. So, this is actually pretty much true of most of Hindu texts, because, we have a concept of Anubandha Chatushtayam. At the beginning of every text, we have this Anubandha Chatushtayam, which is about what is the object that is being enunciated in a text, what is the relationship between the text and the object of knowledge that is being discussed, what is the prayojana or the fruit of studying that subject, and who is the adhikari, who is the rightful seeker for whom the text has been written. So anyways, so a few just the four excerpts from Anukramanika Parva, which speaks about the greatness of Mahabharata as a text. So in one place in that Anukramanika Parva, it says, the three mysteries of knowledge, namely the Veda, the Yoga, and the Vijnana. So here the Vijnana is not science in the sense of modern science, but rather it is referring to the Dharma Shastra, Artha Shastra, and Kama Shastra. So these three mysteries of knowledge, the Vedas, the Yoga, and the Vijnana in the form of Dharma, Artha, and Kama, they were created, the sages, the sage that is Vyasa, he saw all these various Shastras interspersed with Dharma, Artha, and Kama, and the rules of conduct for the world. He saw the ancient histories, the Itihasas, and all their commentaries, and the Shruti texts as well. So this book, that is this Mahabharata, has the signs of all these, all those, everything is here. Having distilled the great knowledge, the sage Vyasa made a summary of all that in both abridged and detailed forms as a storehouse of knowledge for the retention of the wise of this world. So this clearly speaks about what is the purpose of the text of Mahabharata. So purpose of the text of Mahabharata is to condense the entirety of knowledge tradition of Dharma, Artha, Kama, Yoga, Veda, Vijnana, everything into a easily digestible, into a distilled format, which is Mahabharata, into a format which facilitates reflection, which facilitates a sincere seeker to reflect upon various stories again and again, and with each reflection, a different layer of meaning is revealed. So that is the beauty of Mahabharata. You know, on one hand, there is the Veda, of course. You know, the Veda is the ultimate pramana. The Veda is the highest text of Sanatana Dharma. We are called Vaidika Dharma for this reason. And based on Veda, we have the Smriti Shastras, which are also very, very important because they codify the knowledge of Dharma into a proper codes of conduct. So they give us these codes of conduct which are very, very helpful to in practice. But this Mahabharata is unique in the sense that it, while even both Veda and the Smritis, they are in a more abstract, or rather in a dry format, you could say. They are for the intellectually bent minds. But Mahabharata appeals to the heart. You know, I think there was one poet, I don't remember who it was. He mentions the something like this, not the exact words, but the intention of the poet is that the Vedas are like a father who teaches, you know, or like a teacher. He teaches things in a very strong manner. So also the Smritis. So the Smritis give advice as a father, you know, as a father scolds you, father sometimes threatens you, scolds you, sometimes gives you advice in a proper manner, but all of them are for your good. So, but there is a notion of authority there. So the Shruti Smriti Shastras advice are like the father's advice, or like a father's instructions. Whereas Mahabharata is like a friend. Itihasa Puranas are like friends. They don't address you with authority, but they convince you. They lay out the issue on the board and then let you take a decision. And so that is how, you know, friends happen. They don't try to impose authority, but rather they share their thoughts and just facilitate. And they say that the kavyas, you know, the various poetic works, they are like your consort, who appeal to the hearts and the emotions in even more rasavat, full of rasa. So you become convinced, like a husband or a lover becomes convinced. So that is a description of a poet. Anyways, so in the Anukramanika Parva, there is another description. It says of how this Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa, he composed a sacred Upanishad. So this Mahabharata is being called as Upanishad here, because the teachings of the Mahabharata is such that it is essence of the Upanishad. It takes one towards moksha. The study of Bharata, that is Mahabharata, is such a holy act that even if one reads only one line of a shloka every day, all the readers' sins, all the papa karmas are destroyed. Here are lauded the performers of the pure deeds, the gods, the devarshis, the immaculate brahmarshis, the yakshas, and the great nagas. The eternal Lord Vasudeva, Bhagwan Vasudeva, has been lauded here. It is this Vasudeva, he is the truth, immortality, purity, and holy. In it is described the eternal supreme Brahman, who is the constant everlasting light and whose divine action is described by the learned. So it's very clear that for the Mahabharata, the author, for the Mahabharata as a text, it is very clear what it is. That it is first, it is a condensation, distillation of the all knowledge systems of Dharma, Artha, Kama, of Veda and Yoga and Vijnana. And second, it is a Upanishad which has the capacity to free us from the bondage of samsara. And of course, it goes without saying that it is a itihasa, it is a dharma shastra as well. So just two more quotations. This is a very famous quotation which says that Vedas should be supported with the itihasas and Puranas. That is, the study of the Vedas has to be supplemented with, embellished with itihasa Puranas, and says, but the Vedas are very afraid of those with little learning, lest that the knowledge be hurt. So, however, if a learned man recites this Veda of Krishna, that is, Krishna is here reference to Vyasa, Krishna Dvaipayana, Karshna Veda, the text says. So, if the learned man recites this Karshna Veda, he will gain. So, what it is saying is, Mahabharata acts as a opening gate to the Vedic knowledge. Even those who do not have direct access to the four Vedas, or do not have the competency or the eligibility to study the four Vedas, or do not have the capacity to study the four Vedas, for even them, for everyone, this Karshna Veda, that is the Veda in the created by the Vyasa, that is the distilled form of Vedic knowledge created by Vyasa in the form of Mahabharata, that is the starting point. That will, engaging with that text will be hugely fruitful. With a person will gain innumerably folds. And the last quote is also very famous. When the Mahabharata says that in ancient times, the Devatas and the Rishis, they came together, and on one side of a scale, the measuring scale, the weighing scale that is there, on one side they kept the four Vedas, and the Mahabharata, the Bharata, was kept on the other side. Both in greatness and in weight, the Bharata was heavier. Because of its superiority in its substance and content, it came to be known as Mahabharata. Bharana, here Bhara means heavy weight. So Mahabharata which is heavyweight champion, so to speak. So that is what Mahabharata is, because it's subject, substance, and content. So he who knows this true meaning is freed from all papam. So this is a very interesting wordplay. See, on one hand, it is saying that Mahabharata is superior to Veda, but we also hold that Veda is the superior sources of Dharma. It is the only independent source of Dharma. So how is it then Mahabharata is being held as the superior source? The point here is, it is superior in the sense, Veda is superior because it is the independent source of Dharma. It is the only Dharma which is, it is a Apaurusheya and Nitya. Similarly, the Smritis are superior because it is directly dependent upon the Vedas. It is also revealed by great rishis such as Swayambhu, Manu, and Parashara, Yajnavalkya, etc. On the same lines, Vyasa's Mahabharata is also superior because it is, of course, it is based on Veda. It is revealed by a great Maharshi such as Vyasa, but it is also superior in the sense that it is a distillation of sum total of all knowledge. That is why Mahabharata claims that whatever is here can be found elsewhere. What is not here is not cannot be found elsewhere as well. So it is the sum total of, it is a distillation of all that is needed to lead a good life, to lead a satisfactory life, to lead a fulfilling life. And it presents this knowledge as a friend through narratives, through stories that facilitates reflection. So that is why it is superior. So here superiority could be of different ways, and so Mahabharata is superior in its own way. Okay, so with this very brief introduction to the greatness of Mahabharata, let us move forward. Just a second. Okay. So I will be discussing in today's session some characteristics of Dharma. So we'll begin with this, and if time permits, we'll take up the relativistic, the problem of relativism that the subject of Dharma faces with, and the three tests of Dharma that Mahabharata gives. So some unique characteristics of identifying lakshanas of Dharma that Mahabharata speaks about again and again at different places. So the most of these quotes are from Shanti Parva. Yes, they are all from Shanti Parva, but spoken at different places in Shanti Parva. So one of the places in Shanti Parva, the Mahabharata says, Prabhavarthaya bhutanam dharma pravachanam kritam यह स्यात् प्रभव संयुक्तः स धर्मम इति निश्चयः. What is the characteristics of dharma, which this is nishchaya, that is certain, it is saying is prabhavarthaya bhutana. So all the sayings of dharma are with a view to nurturing, to cherishing, to providing more sorry, yeah, just a second, yeah. So all the sayings of Dharma are with a view of nurturing, cherishing, providing more amply, enriching, increasing, enhancing all living beings, in one word, securing their prabhava. So here prabhava basically means origination, enhancing, increasing, something which has a beginning, which gives rise to. So all these different meanings are there. So this prabhava is one of the identifying feature of dharma. So wherever we see that some action, some situation, some things are leading to nurturing, cherishing, increasing in wellness, fulfillment. So all these are dharma. So yesterday I was listening to a very short clip, actually a short tweet which contained one of the quotes from one of the acharyas of Sringeri Sharda Peetham. The Shankaracharya said, I mean, I think it was Bharati Tirtha Swamigal, the current Shankaracharya. He says in one of his talks that he quotes from actually Mahabharata again. So here when the Pandavas were in Agyatavasa, after finishing the Vanavasa, they were in 1 year of Agyatavasa, wherein they were supposed to stay hidden, and if they were found out, they had to repeat the whole thing again. So then Duryodhana comes to Bhishma and asks, please tell us where Yudhishthira and his brothers could be. You know them well, please tell me. So there, Bhishma says, I don't know, just as you don't know, I also don't know, but I can give you a hint. Dharmaraja, Yudhishthira is a Dharmaraja. So wherever he will be, that country, that kingdom will be prosperous. It will be subhiksham. So it will be have all the good signs, auspicious signs. The rains will happen on the right times. There will be prosperity everywhere, both in a very natural sense, but in the whole human life condition will be in a will be flourishing. So that is the notion of Prabhava. So Prabhava is that which is always flourishing, enhancing, increasing prosperity. So that is the indication of Dharma. So another indication, this is very well known, we already discussed in Dharma Shastra section as well, which is Dharana. Dharana dharma mityahu dharmena vidruta prajaha yahasya dharana samyuktaha sa dharma iti nishchaya. All the sayings of Dharma are with the view of supporting. Dharana means supporting. Dharana means sustaining, bringing together. In their togetherness, upholding all the living beings, securing in one word is Dharma. Therefore, whatever has the characteristics of doing the Dharana is Dharma. This is such. So again, this is another feature like Prabhava, Dharana. So wherever in the world we perceive these features, see what is the purpose of the enunciation of these features? The purpose is to help us. See, the Shastras, the life is always complicated. The Shastras, be it the Vedas or the Smritis or Itihasa Puranas, no text can completely capture all of human situation, entirety of human condition, because so much changes are happening in our world, right? Now people, nowadays people tell me, see, now we have artificial intelligence, we have cloning and everything. Can your Dharma Shastras teach what is needed in this situation? Because they are all outdated, they say. But this view is problematic because our Shastras, they are not focusing on the temporary. They are focusing on eternal futures. Features like this. Yes, the external world is always fast moving, it is always changing, but these features will not change. Wherever you perceive the quality, the characteristics of Prabhava, you can infer that there is some aspect of Dharma there. There is some action of Dharma that is causing it, some condition of Dharma which is causing it. And the opposite is also true. Similarly, whatever actions, whatever human endeavors upholds, leads to securing well-being, sustains us, and takes us from the human condition of suffering to a more enlightened condition of happiness and knowledge, that is Dharma. So this is the Lakshana, this is the importance of knowing this Lakshana. Through these Lakshanas, we can use our direct perception to perceive what kind of Dharma is there, or where Dharma is there, or where Adharma is there in the world around us. We can directly see whether our actions are leading to Prabhava, Dharana, etc., or our actions are leading to opposite of it, leading to decay, leading to suffering, right? Now, the third characteristics that Mahabharata speaks is ahimsa. And this is very, very important. If you remember from the Dharma Shastra class, we mentioned when Manusmriti speaks about the basic ethical, the universal values that we have to follow, it gives there are many such principles, values, but it summarizes them, everything, distills them into only 5 principles. They are ahimsa, satyam, asteyam, shaucham, indriya nigraham. Ahimsa, satya, asteya, shaucha, indriya nigraham. Ahimsa comes first. So ahimsa is a test. Ahimsa is the criteria of dharma. Whatever action we do, we have to ask ourselves, is this causing violence to somebody, to some person, to some animal or any being, or to the environment, or to myself? And if yes, then the second question would be, is that violence justified or required or necessary or avoidable? So if your first answer is it is not causing violence, then good enough, very good actually. But if the answer is that yes, there is some form of violence, then we have to ask ourselves, is it necessary? Is it avoidable? Is the reason that we have to do this is purely selfishness, or is there a greater good involved? Or if it is, even if it is for some self-centered goal, is it avoidable? Could there be another way? So all these are many such questions that we need to ask ourselves. So that idea is being repeated here when the Mahabharata is saying that ahimsarthaya bhutanam dharma pravachanam kritam yahasyad ahimsa sampruktaha sadharma iti nishchaya. You see, all these verses are in a similar format, in the sense, if you read the verse, the formatting, the words used is very similar. Iti nishchaya, this is certain. All of these verses are mostly ending like that. Dharma pravachanam, samyuktaha, sampruktaha. So the author of Mahabharata, he was very clear what he was doing. There is a commonality even in the phrasing of the sentences. So what this verse on ahimsa says, that all the sayings of dharma are with a view or to securing for all living beings freedom from violence, freedom from injury, that is ahimsa, freedom from aggression. Therefore, whatever has the characteristics of not doing injury is dharma. This is Sat. So conversely speaking, the opposite, whatever has the characteristics, now we are combining the 3, prabhava, dharana and ahimsa. The opposite of them is the characteristics such as depriving, starving, diminishing, separating, uprooting, hurting, doing violence, doing injury, debasing, degrading. All these characteristics, everything, all our actions, all the phenomenon, all the conditions which have these characteristics, they denote a negation of dharma, that is, and what brings about such conditions is adharma. So everywhere, wherever, if any institution, it could be any policy decisions, it could be any institutional setups, it could be our engagement with the environment around us, our own personal actions, whatever it is, wherever we perceive there is depravity, there is degrading, there is debasing, there is starving, there is diminishing of personalities, there is uprooting, there is some form of rotting away, degrading, violence, injury, there you can immediately perceive that there is some adharma that is causing it. So positivity is dharma, what flourishes is dharma, what diminishes, what depraves is adharma, negativity is adharma. So this is the third characteristics, prabhava, dharana and ahimsa. The fourth characteristics of Dharma is Nyaya. Nyaya here means justice. It is used in the sense of justice. So the Mahabharata says, Arambho Nyaya Yukto Yaha Sa Hi Dharma Iti Smritaha Anacharastvadharmeti Etat Shishtanu Shasanam. Etat Shishtanu Shasanam. So what is the Shishtanu Shasanam? It is the rule, Shasana or order or the rule or the standard settled by, accepted by the Shishtas. Shishtas are those who are respected in the society. Shishtas are the elders of the society. Or more technically speaking, Shishtas are those who know the Dharma, who know the Shastras, who are well versed in the Veda and the Smritis, and who practice the same. So that is important. They are not just bookworms. They know the knowledge, they practice them. They are the Shishtas. So the standard set up by these Shishtas, what is this? It is that whatever has its beginning in Nyaya, in justice, that alone is Dharma. So whatever has its beginning in some form of righteousness, some form of justice, some notion of justness, that is Dharma. So what is this justice? So justice is that which has the characteristics of nurturing, cherishing, providing amply, enriching, increasing, enhancing all living beings, supporting, sustaining, bringing together, and in their togetherness upholding all living beings, and securing for all beings freedom from violence, freedom from fear. Whatever is anachara, there is achara, there is anachara. So achara is what is good, what is beneficial, what leads to well-being. Anachara is the opposite, what is unjust, what is oppressive, what leads to suffering and sorrow, that is adharma. So, and anachara is having the characteristics of depriving, starving, diminishing, separating, uprooting, debasing, degrading, etc. So you see this, all these characters, they play into each other. Where there is prabhava, there is also dharana, there is also ahimsa, there is also nyaya. Where there is nyaya encompasses prabhava, ahimsa and dharana. So justness is also a concern of dharma. It is also a characteristics, lakshana of dharma. So if you feel a situation is unjust and you have justified reasons to consider the situation as unjust, then you can immediately infer that that unjustness has been caused by some papa karma, right? So these are all lakshanas, very, very useful when you have to perceive, when you have to analyze the real world, when you have to analyze your day-to-day life situations. So as I mentioned, the Smritis, etc., give the code of conduct, how you should be, what actions leads to dharma, what actions leads to adharma, what actions leads to sukha, swarga, chitta shuddhi, what actions leads to dukkha, narakaya, bandhana. But what Mahabharata is doing is it is giving certain characteristics through which you are able to analyze the external world. You know, to apply the codes of conduct that the Shruti and the Smriti gives, you have to have the intellectual capacity to analyze your situation and then take decisions. This is very, very important because we often ignore this aspect. It is not that we have some commandments and we are blindly following it. So when I was discussing with Prabhuji off and on, we have been discussing about Dharma and the Shastras, the notion of Pramanas, and whether and how we differ from Abrahamic religion. So I have always upheld the importance of Shastra Pramana. But the point to note here is the Shastra is a pramana, that is, it reveals knowledge about dharma, adharma. But it does not have the capacity to force us into following anything. Whether we practice dharma or adharma is individual decision. It is for us to take. Whatever decision we take, the burden, the responsibility is with us, because the consequences of the action is also we only have to face. Our karmic actions, my friend or my mother or my sister or my wife or my children will not face. Whatever actions I do, I have to face the consequence. So the only way then we are able to decide whether we have to practice dharma or not, or what constitutes dharma in a situation, is through using our knowledge, applying our intellect. So we have the onus of decision making. So these characteristics of dharma, the lakshanas that the Manusmriti speaks at some places, but here the Mahabharata is also giving, these lakshanas help us to analyze our day-to-day situations, analyze the world around us at large, and identify what conditions are a result of dharma, what conditions are caused by adharma. So help us in deciding the course of action that we have to take. So the fifth lakshana that Mahabharata speaks is adroha. It says etat sarvam samalokya bhutanamesha nishchayaha adrohenaiva bhutanam yo dharmaha sa satam mataha. Having observed this variety and reflecting deeply, the learned and the wise have concluded that not to be treacherous and malicious, that is adroha, not to be treacherous and malicious towards other beings, is dharma in the eyes of the good and the saintly, in the eyes of the shishtas. Adroha. Droha means being malicious, being treacherous. Droha means cunning, fooling others, backstabbing others. Droha can be very subtle. You may not be simply as simple as you may have some bad intentions, having bad faith, acting in bad faith. All of them are adharma. Avoiding from it, abstaining from it, acting in good faith, acting in a non-malicious, non-treacherous manner, keeping up with trust and friendship, that is what dharma is. Now, you could ask, did Shivaji commit adharma because he silently took the tiger claw when he went to meet Afzal Khan? But that is not so. That is where we have to use our vivekam. See, Shivaji did what he did in self-defense. He took precaution because he knew the opposite party is full of droha. They're full of chala. They're treacherous lot. And he was proved right. The first war, the one who wanted to harm Shivaji was the Afzal Khan. He made that. Shivaji just responded very quickly, right? So we have to have that vivekam about how to apply these things. So all this ahimsa, adroha, all these qualities, they are meant to empower us. We should not reduce them. We should not, even that would be a misuse if we are to make them as an excuse for our weakness, as an excuse for our sorrow, as an excuse for our inaction. That is not dharma. That is merely an excuse of a dharma. We are basically cowards for using ahimsa, droha, etc. as a moral badge behind which we can hide our inaction. So we have to have that courage to understand what truly constitutes dharma and do the need. And the last characteristics of dharma that I have included in the presentation is Manasa sarva bhuteshu shivam acharet. Basically, I have just quoted from the verse. Manasam sarva bhutanam, manasam sarva bhutanam, dharma mahur manishinaha, tasmat sarveshu bhuteshu manasa shivam acharet. Simply it's saying that those who have thought deeply or of the view that dharma is what is done for all beings with one's heart and mind. Manasam sarva bhutanam. For the sake of all beings, whatever you do for the sake of all beings, not for your selfish purpose, not for your own self, but for the sake of all beings, what you do with your heart and mind. So it is not something you grudgingly do, not something you have been forced to do, not something you do in compulsion or with half-heartedness. It is something you do with your full heart and mind. You pour your heart and mind and soul, everything you have, and for the sake of others. That constitutes dharma. So therefore, let one do with one's hearts and mind what is good for all others. So Shivam Acharit, here Shiva means auspiciousness, what is Mangala, what is good, what brings goodness, what brings well-being to others. That is Dharma. See what a wonderful Lakshana it is. That we have to act, our actions have to be, should not always be for our own selfish purposes. It is not wrong to pursue your individual desires. So, see, for example, all the pujas that we do, it begins with sankalpa. What does the sankalpa say? Asmakam sakutumbanam kshema stairya jaya vijaya ayush arogya adi. Ayush arogya aishwarya adi samasta abhishta praptyartam. Samasta, all our ichhas, all our desires, let us be fulfilled. Let us get prosperity, kshema, stairya, ayush, arogya, everything. That is not wrong. It is not saying you should not follow your individual desires. But it is saying that what is superior is when you act selflessly. And that superior selfless action, which is done for the benefit, for the well-being of others, and when you do it with your full heart and soul in it, that constitutes dharma. That is a lakshana of dharma. Now I'll give you an opposite example. We all know Mother Teresa. She have been part of the propaganda machinery. She has been made into personification of seva. But the fact is, what most people don't realize, or the sideline, is that all her seva has a ulterior motive. Chala. There was droha in it. What is it? She did it not for the purpose of serving others, but she did it for the sake of converting them to the Christianity. So what she was doing there, it cannot be considered as dharma, even though it was helping others, even though there was a element of seva, but that seva was contaminated with droha, with ulterior motives. That is not what is this manasa sarva bhuteshu shivam acharet. There was no shiva part here, because if she was really wanting to the well-being of the others, then why would she convert? Why would she use a chala to convert? When the person is already on the deathbed and the very last moment of his life, they are told to convert because that will save them, right? So even though she may have perceived that as a good act from her perspective, there was chala involved in it, and that cannot be just wiped away. So that is a good example of, contrary to what actually the Manasa Sarva Bhuteshu Shivamacharit stands for. So, and on what constitutes doing good to all other beings, the Mahabharata gives some suggestions on that also. So in Shanti Parva only, there is this verse which says, what he does not find agreeable when done by others onto him, that he should not do unto others. He must know that what is unhappy for him cannot be happy for others. See, this is a very, very good example. We were just talking about the Mother Teresa. She converted others. But if somebody else, say a Hindu, went and tried to convert Mother Teresa, would she perceive it as something good? Definitely not. She would be extremely loathsome to that idea, because the Christian theology says that except Christianity, all others are false gods, false religions. So obviously she will not want to convert to other religions. But she is open to converting others, right? So that is what this verse is saying. If you are finding some action when it is done to you by others as disagreeable, then don't do that same action to the other. Because what makes you unhappy, it cannot make other also happy. It will make them unhappy. So avoid that. That is what dharma is. Similarly, another place it says, whatever is not agreeable to one, that he should not do unto others. This in brief is dharma, all else is selfishness. See, I was just telling you how there was no element of selflessness in Teresa's action, because there was ulterior motive, there was selfishness. What is dharma is selflessness. Selflessness is another mark of dharma, another characteristics of dharma. So that is what this manasa sarva bhuteshu shivamacharit is. It is selflessness. When you are acting in the to benefit others in a selfless manner, but with your full heart and mind to it, that constitutes dharma. So we finished the characteristics of dharma now. Oh yeah, one more is there, sorry. So the final one I have included is this, which is priya abhyugatam. Priya means love and friendship. So Mahabharata says that sarve priya abhyugatam dharma mahur manishinaha pashyaitam lakshanodesham dharma adharma Yudhishthira. What is obtained by love and friendship, all that is dharma. Its opposite is all that is adharma. Consider this to be distinguishing sign of dharma and adharma. Somebody asks, why can't we understand that Mother Teresa did it openly but not cunningly, and people who converted, they did it not by compulsion but by looking for a service. When you are in deathbed, you do not have options. That is a compulsion of a different sense. And doing openly does not mean there was no cunningness involved. Please read about Mother Teresa more. She was not a pure saint. She had dealings with the mafia in the Europe. She took millions of dollars from them also. Please read about, there are wonderful books that exposes her true face. So I won't go more into it. Conversion is violence. Swami Dayananda Saraswati of Arsha Vidya Gurukulam, not the Arya Samaj Swamiji, has written a small book called Conversion is Violence. So conversion by definition is adharma. You do it openly or you do it covertly does not matter. There is adharma involved, there is himsa involved, there is droha involved in it. So let's not go there now. So this priyam what is obtained by love and friendship is dharma. All other opposite is adharma. So these are all different lakshanas that will help us to identify dharma, identify what, analyze the situations in front of us and facilitate our decision making. Now, I think we are already at 7:30. I have at least 4 or 5 more slides to cover. Okay. Now, another issue that Mahabharata takes a big time is the issue of contextualization, the problem of relativism. Dharma in our Dharma Shastra classes we saw is eternal. Dharma is eternal. The principles of Dharma are eternal, the essential principles. Ahimsa was Dharma in Satya Yuga, it remains Dharma in Kali Yuga. Satya was Dharma in Satya Yuga, it remains Dharma in Kali Yuga. It is not that today the falsehood or causing injury has become Dharma, right? Just because people indulge in it, that does not make it Dharma. However, this does not mean that the principles of Dharma are stagnant in nature, in the sense that though they are eternal, when it comes to application, they are also contextual. They are also sensitive to desha, kala, or patrata, that is place, time, and the person involved. So based on this contextualization, this sensitivity to context, sensitivity to place, location, person, and other contextual things, the actual principle of dharma which would apply in a situation changes from situation to situation. What could be dharma in one situation, the same principle could act as a adharma in another person's condition and another situation. Like, for example, you know, we say that ahimsa, himsa or injury is adharma. But when a surgeon does a surgery, he's also causing injury, right? He's basically cutting you up open. But that is not adharma. Action is same. There is violence. If you kill somebody because, say, you are killing somebody out of spite because you hate him, the action is killing there. A surgeon who is opening up the body, there is violence, that is also same action is there. And there is another soldier who is fighting on the border, who is killing an enemy. And there is another example in a Vedic yagya or in a temple such as Kamakhya, there is a killing of the goat. There is killing in all there is a committing of physical violence in all these cases. However, the adharma is only in the context of when you are murdering somebody because of spite or hatredness or whatever it is, not in other cases. So that makes understanding what constitutes dharma, adharma a little bit complicated, a lot more complicated. If you remember the Draupadi Vastraharana situation, all the elders, they could not speak anything. They could only say that dharma is more subtle than the subtlest. They could not give a direct answer. It is not that they had something bad intentions in their mind, but because the question that was there, the activity that gave rise to the whole thing, it posed certain questions which they were unable to resolve. But Krishna resolved it very easily because Krishna is Bhagavan. Anyways, so the point is, while the Veda and Smritis highlight eternal principles of dharma and gives codes of conduct to practice in life, Mahabharata highlights how, when it comes to determining what exactly constitutes dharma, or if there are two or more principles of dharma at play, what is it that constitutes the primary action, or how to decide what is the course of action we should take. In such practical context, the contextual and relativistic nature of dharma poses significant problems. because human life itself is very complex and multidimensional, with many forces at play, external and internal conditions acting upon it. So in this Mahabharata expresses in the voice of Yudhishthira, which highlights the problem. So Yudhishthira, this is all from I think Shanti Parva, and one quotation is from Udyoga Parva. So Yudhishthira says, what is more, one could see the crude and the unsophisticated doing what looks like dharma, whereas in fact is adharma, and the reverse being often the case with the actions of the sophisticated and the cultured as well. That is, they are doing what looks like adharma, but which is in fact dharma. In another place he says, furthermore, there was no one code of conduct beneficial to all in equal measure or applicable to all in all circumstances. I mentioned about how, same action in different contexts changes, right? So what is the code of dharma for a Brahmana may be different from what is code of dharma for a Kshatriya. What is code of conduct for a Brahmachari would be different from code of conduct for a sannyasi, something like that. So to the contrary, the very thing that helped rise higher acted as an obstruction in the case of others. So if you did, for example, an animal sacrifice in a ritualistic context, say in a Vaidika Yagya or in a temple such as Kamakya, that uplifts you because that is dharma. But the same action of killing the animals, say for in the cosmetic industry, that is adharma. That is an obstruction that causes suffering. You see, same action, different dharma, different results. One gives rise to punya, the other gives rise to papa. Another place says, Yudhishthira says, none could see anywhere conduct that would be uniformly good for all. Sometimes adharma looked like dharma. At other times, the established dharmas turned seemingly into adharma. And there was no distinguishing between the two. A good example is again from Mahabharata. I quoted in the Dharma Shastra class also. I think it was one of the sages, what is it, Durvasa, was it somebody else? I said that time also, I did not remember. When there was drought and they were starving, he went to steal dogs and then eat it. Both stealing is adharma and eating dog is also adharma. But still he wanted to commit it for the sake of surviving. So what is established as adharma, what is sometimes adharma, suddenly became dharma in his case, in the sense that it was for his survival. Right? And again, Yudhishthira says the same act is dharma or adharma for different people, depending on time, place, and the person concerned. The same action becomes dharma or adharma for different people. So I already gave examples for that also. So how then to resolve this dharma sankata? This is basically what we call dharma sankata is caused by this relativistic, the contextual aspect, nature of dharma. This is a problem of relativism. Yudhishthira further says, we saw in our Dharma Shastra class how the Shruti, Smriti, Itihasa, Puranas, these are the pramanas of dharma. From these we gain knowledge about dharma, from the Sadachara, etc. But Yudhishthira problematizes these as well. He says, even these sources cannot be relied upon because life is multifaceted and complex, and teachings of these one or two of these texts is not useful, is sometimes misleading. He says, again, these are all from Shanti Parva. Yudhishthira says, the learned declare the Veda to be basis of dharma, but Veda change according to each cycle of time. That is, every kalpa, what happens? In the beginning of the kalpa, Brahma manifests the Veda again. So in each cycle, Veda is manifested again. That is what he's saying. The Veda changes according to each cycle of time. The Dharma of the Satya Yuga is different. The Dharma of the Treta and the Dwapara Yuga were different. And in Kali Yuga, it is still different. So different Dharma according to different capacities is also there. So we have notion of Yuga Dharma. Certain things which were Dharma in the previous Yugas are no longer so. For example, Niyoga was a Dharma in Mahabharata in the Dwapara Yuga. Niyoga is how the Vyasa conceived children for the Kuru lineage, right? That is Niyoga. Even how, in some sense, how the Pandu wives conceived children from the Devatas, that is also a form of Niyoga. But that is Adharma for Kali Yuga. So this changes. So how is then Veda reliable? That is what Yudhishthira is intending. There is one kind of Dharma for a person in an equable situation, in a normal condition, and of another kind of for a person in kind of distress. How can reading of Veda alone decide what is Dharma in a distress situation shall be? In Smritis, for example, we have Apad Dharma, Anapad Dharma. Anapad is normal condition, Apad is emergency condition. So there is such wide variety of instructions about Dharma. So on Smritis, Yudhishthira says, as regards to Smritis, they were derived from Veda and could be authoritative only if Veda were so. But Veda is not free from ambiguity, nor authoritative for every situation. How could Smriti be so? Often conflicting with each other. Where was the force in there? Similarly, the Sadachara, the Shishtachara we mentioned, the cultured conduct, it being the standard of Dharma, he says, even that suffers from the fallacy of circularity of definition. The conduct of good men is called Dharma, and good men are those whose conduct reflects Dharma. With this fallacy in the definition, can cultured conduct be a proof of Dharma? See, it seems that Yudhishthira wants to question every source of Dharma and their authoritativeness, but it is not so actually. What he is saying is a problem, is a confusion that naturally arises in all of us when we think about what Dharma is, what Adharma is, because we see that life is a very complex thing and we are often put in situations which are very complex. A good example for this, there is one example. There was a sage who had taken a vow that he will always speak truth. Now what happened? There was a person who came running towards him. He said, look, sage, some miscreants are behind me, they want to kill me. I am going and hiding behind that tree. If they come here, please misguide them. Please tell them that I went in the opposite direction. So this guy was a good guy. He was an innocent person. He was being harassed by some thugs. The sage did not say anything. Because there was no time for getting a response. He said so and went away. The thugs came and they asked the sage. Now the sage had taken a vow of speaking truth always. So he said truthfully, look there, that big tree, he is behind that. So that these miscreants, they thanked the sage, they went and killed that person. Now, when the sage died eventually, he did not go to Swarga. He went to the doors of Yama. He was surprised. He was shocked. I lived with the vow of Satya and how did this happen? So he asked Yama. So Yama was compassionate enough to tell him, look, what you did here is not Satya. Your literal interpretation caused the death of somebody, which is Adharma. There is Himsa there. I'm not saying you should have spoken truth. You could have simply lied. You could have simply stayed silent. I'm not saying you should have spoken lies. You could have at least stayed silent. Right? So Dharma is subtle for this reason. We all have the Shastras which say Satya is Dharma. But there is a context here where there are more principles of dharma at play. There is satya, but there is also ahimsa at play. So that is why decision making takes lot of vivek. So that is why the Yudhishthira is problematizing it. He is giving a voice to the problems that all of us will have. Once we decide that we will lead a dharmika life and we look up to the sources of dharma such as Shruti, Smriti, Itihasa Puranas, sources such as Sadachara, Shishtachara, our own acharyas, how they did, how they lived, how our elders have lived. When we look up all those things, then these doubts arise. Yudhishthira, for the questions of Yudhishthira, Bhishma provides a solution. He provides a very eloquent discussion on this. So what does Bhishma say? I'll just read out the verses and they are easily understandable. He says, one should depend upon one's intelligence, buddhi, the term uses buddhi. One should depend upon one's intelligence to decide between dharma and adharma and act accordingly. Any knowledge that is covered with a doubt can hardly be called knowledge. It is necessary to remove one's doubts with its very roots. So that the doubt we just discussed, so the way to remove it is through intelligence, through buddhi, through our use of vivekam, our discriminatory knowledge capacity to discriminate between right and the wrong and the good and the bad and the dharma and adharma. The same act depending upon circumstances is now dharma and then adharma. Not understanding their essential relativity, one is naturally assailed with a doubt. So he's not saying that we have to ignore that relativism exists or we have to blindly follow whatever is there as a commandment. No. He's saying that accept that relativity is how the nature of dharma. It is the essential aspect of dharma when it comes to dharma as a practical principle, when it has to be practiced. So not understanding their essential relativity, one is naturally assailed with that. Only when we are obsessed with arriving at an absolute instruction, one universal instruction for all conditions, only when we are obsessed with this notion, then relativism of dharma becomes problematic. But the moment we accept that dharma is relative, in the sense that there are eternal principles of dharma, but when it comes to the practiced implementation, there is an essential relativity to it. Then all doubts will vanish. So the only way to remove this doubt is to understand through intelligence their relative nature. Dharma and cultured conduct, achara, both arise from this intelligence. And it is from intelligence that they are known. So intelligence is buddhi. We have been endowed with this faculty of buddhi by Bhagavan so that we can analyze the situation, understand the situation and take proper action. That is what buddhi is. So it is by recourse to intelligence, learning different things from different people and not depending upon only one branch of dharma, that one should illuminate one's path. So what it is saying, do not consider any source of dharma as the sole branch of dharma, as the sole authority of dharma. Take learning about dharma from different sources, all from authentic sources, not from unauthentic sources, but from different sources. Distill, reflect upon it, digest that knowledge, distill that knowledge, then use the intelligence to implement that knowledge in a practical sense. So in short, what Mahabharata says is that one should not be boggled by the complex nature of things or the contextual nature of dharma when it comes to practice. Rather, one must accept the relativism inherent in the life, in the practice, in the life situation, because life itself is complex. And therefore, instead rely upon different sources, acquire knowledge about Dharma from different sources, and then understand how these principles are at play in a particular situation, what principles of Dharma are at play in a situation, and then using intelligence, buddhi, which is nothing but power of discretion, that is vivekam, you arrive at right conclusion about what course of action to do, what not to be done. So this is how the dharmic teachings have to be translated into practice. So the purpose of this question and answer, the problematization of relativism, was to arrive at this, how to translate the teachings of Dharma in the Shastras or from the that we see from the Acharyas into a practicable aspect in our daily life. How to convert it into how to act, decide upon, make decision making in difficult situations that we face in our everyday life. And but at the same time, Bhishma cautions about, against over reliance on logic and rationality, and insists that true knowledge is beyond the reach of rationality. He says it is when logic of argument comes to an end that one gains knowledge of a superior order, and it is in the fullness of light of that knowledge that world is lighted. Give up trying to limit within speech and the logic of argument what cannot be grasped. This is a very important caveat, because often people think that we do not need Shastras, we do not need Vedas, we do not need Smritis, Itihasas. I can use my intellect in isolation to do what is right. I know what is right. It is not so. Intellect or logic, rationality, they are like a sword. They can cut both ways. You can cut yourself, you can cut your enemy also. To use the sword in proper manner, you first need to know who your enemy is. Second, you need to have a proper sword training. Otherwise, even if you aim at your enemy, you may end up cutting yourself. This training, this knowledge about how to use it and on whom to use it, in the case of Dharma, that comes from the Shastras, that comes from the sources, pramanas of Dharma, Shruti, Smriti, Itihasa, Purana, Sadachara, Shishtachara, all of them. So intelligence, the sword of intelligence, have to be sharpened by continuous engagement with the Shastras, with the Shabda Pramana. Then through that you will be able to digest the knowledge and then transform them into practice, convert them to act as guiding principles while taking decisions in your practical situations. So that is how the intelligence has to be used. That is how the rationality has to be used. And this position is not that this is a unique position of Mahabharata, as some may want to put it forward as. This is the position of Manusmriti also. In the Manusmriti itself, there are verses I have just quoted here. It on one hand highlights the importance of intelligence and learning for understanding Dharma Shastras. It calls this as Jnana Chakshu. We should study the Dharma Shastras with Jnana Chakshu, that is eye of knowledge, that is with discretion, with the power of buddhi, not in a blind manner. And on the other hand, it also cautions against going overboard with logic and argumentation, with dialectics. So the verses are very, I'll just quickly read them out. In the second chapter, these verses come. Manu says, having fully perceived all this, that is all this knowledge about Dharma, these teachings about Dharma, with the eye of knowledge, Jnana Chakshu, the learned man should enter upon his own duties. So when you study the Dharma Shastras, you study with intelligence, with the eye of knowledge, then you enter upon your own duties. That is, then you start practicing and start converting what you learned into practice, resting upon the authority of Veda. So the authority of the Shastra, Veda, Smriti, etc. is there. You are not sidelining them and using intelligence as a isolation. You're using intelligence to interpret and to understand the teachings of the Vedas, Smritis, etc. And then in verse 10 of the second chapter, it says the Veda is the revealed word, the Shruti, and the Dharma Shastras are the Smritis. In all matters, these two do not deserve to be criticized. They do not deserve to be, they should not be kept aside, they should not be ignored by taking refuge in tarka, by taking refuge in logic and argumentation. Because through Shruti and Smriti, Dharma shows forth. They are this pramana for Dharma. And then again it says, relying upon the science of dialectics, that is Hetu Shastra. The term Hetu Shastra is what Mahabharata also used, the logic of argument is Hetu Shastra. Relying upon this science of dialectics or the logic of argumentation, if someone disregards the two sources, that is Shruti and Smriti, such a person should be cast out by good men, because they are nothing but Veda Nindakas. They are the detractors of Vedas, being infidel. Infidel here is basically a translation by Ganganaja for the word Nastikas. So those who disregard Veda and Smriti using Tarka as a weapon, they are Veda Nindakas, they are Nastikas. So the Tarka, the sword of logic, the sword of rationality is not to be used as a weapon against the sources of Dharma. It has to be used as a weapon to understand the sources of Dharma, not to reject, right? That is what Mahabharata is doing, is saying, you use intelligence, you use logic and or argumentation to understand the pramanas of Dharma so that you can convert its teachings into practicality. And towards this end, to facilitate in this conversion, Bhishma gives 3 tests of Dharma, 3 proofs of Dharma. This is actually nothing but re-enumeration of the sources of Dharma that we see in Manusmriti. He calls these 3 tests as Pratyaksha or direct perception, that is our perception of our life situations and our analyzing of that life situations that we just discussed. Second is Agama, which is scriptural authority, that is the Shruti, Smriti, Ityasa, Puranas. The third is Shishtachara, the conduct of the good, conduct of those people who are well versed in the Vedas, well versed in the Smritis, and who are living that life, who are living the life of Dharma, practicing Dharma. So the point is, the important contribution of Bhishma to the discussion is that he highlights one important thing. He says that this Pratyaksha, Agama and Shishtachara, Yudhishthira questions, they all have, should we use them in isolation? Because they all give different teachings. Bhishma says, no, they all are to be taken together in unity. And they, when you take together in unity, they do not give separate dharmas. He says, know this, that dharma is a unity. And all the 3 proofs, all the 3 tests, namely the Pratyaksha, Agama and Shishtachara, they show unity. My mind does not accept that they show different separate dharmas. The path that they show, walk on it. The inquiry into dharma is not through the logic of argument. So this is a very, very important teaching, because people often say that Smritis are not reliable. Shruti is not reliable, because at different places we find what appears to be conflicting narratives, conflicting teachings. But what is Bhishma saying? You analyze all the sources of Dharma in unity. That is, he is bringing out the principle which is also used in Vedanta and all. The principle of unity, that all the teachings, all the sources are giving a single teaching. They are not giving conflicting teaching. They are giving the single teaching. So when you understand this to be so, then what you do is you use the Mimamsa principles to resolve apparent conflicts. you try to understand how the teachings are there, in what context teachings are. So for example, in Manusmriti, there is a good discussion about meat eating. On one place, it says that meat eating is natural to a human being. And another place, it says that meat eating gives rise to a lot of papa karma. At another place, it says that you can eat meat by offering it to Devata. By first offering it to Devata, and then you can eat. And in another place, it says that abstaining from meat gives the punya equivalent to performing Ashwamedha Yajna. See, all these four things come in the same discussion. People many people, there are books written on it saying that certain portions of this meat eating discussion in Mahanusmriti is a later day interpolation, because there is contradictory teachings there. But this is actually a problematic approach, because there is no real contradiction here. Manusmriti is basically highlighting different aspects of the issue, different shades of the issue. You have to use this principle of unity to arrive at a integrated holistic knowledge, and not say that some part of Manusmriti is an interpolation of some ideologically problematic people. That is not how it works. So what is the unity of approach here? It is that true meat eating involves animal violence for the selfish purpose, for the taste purpose. So there is papa karma attached to it. But the fact is, violence is embedded in the samsara itself. So you are eating to survive yourself. So it is natural for you. It is a natural behavior of animals to eat animals. So you see in the nature that lions eat deers and such things. So this is naturally, there is violence embedded in the samsara. So eating meat is a natural activity. However, there is papa involved in it because of the himsa there. So how do you reduce that papa karma? It is that you offer the meat to the devata as an offering, and then take it as a prasada. Then the papa karma will be reduced, because you are not eating for the purely for the sake of taste, but you are offering it to the devata and then consuming. But a more superior method would be, what is it? It is that you abstain from it for the sake of ahimsa. That will be equivalent to Ashwamedha. So it recognizes, this teaching recognizes that everybody cannot be vegetarian on day one. That does not work like that. We all have inherent vasanas and tendencies, our own taste. We come with lot of baggage. So we have to slowly, we are come with sattva, rajas, tamo guna. You cannot magically transform a being. It has to happen slowly. And there is no need to have guilt about what comes to you by swabhava, right? So this is a multifaceted teaching which is helpful to everybody. And importantly, there is no prohibition of meat eating per se. There is no blanket prohibition. There is but there is no prescription also. What is there? There is a parisankhya vidhi which says that there is no compulsion to eat meat, but if you have to eat meat, then avoid this particular kind of meats. That is all, right? And then eat it by giving the offering to the devata. I think we are already out of time. I'll just finish it. I'll just one more slide is there. So these three tests in unity constitutes the way out of the problem of relativism. One should anchor oneself in all these three tests. Pratyaksha, analyzing the situation at hand through your direct perception. Then anchoring yourself in the teaching of the agamas, in the teaching of the Shruti Smriti Puranas, how they teach, what are the principles of dharma at play, how to apply it, and then taking reference to Shishtachara, how our elders have applied in a similar situation, if there is such an example, and then take a decision of what constitutes dharma for you or adharma, and take action accordingly. Thank you. Sorry for taking too much time. I am open to take questions. in case it is not too late for the audience. Thank you very much. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Okay, ధన్యవాదములండి. Now anybody wants to ask any question, now the time is overshooting. Okay, Ram Mohan garu.
Sir, good morning. Thanks for a very good content as well as delivery. My couple of questions is that in crisp, why either Bhishma or Dhritarashtra did not use veto power? I am suggesting two names because at least one of them should have a veto power. Then,
Okay. See, the reason is Bhishma could not have used a veto power in the sense because that would be violation of his vow. He had taken a vow to serve the throne of Hastinapura, so he had to serve the king. So he could only try to convince the people at power, but he could not take a decision. He could have broken his vow and taken a decision, but then that would not have made him a Bhishma, right? But yes, there is a learning from his life. You know, there are many things you can learn that perhaps Bhishma did not learn that for a greater dharma, you have to violate your lesser dharma. So if he had violated his vow, definitely he would have never been respected the way he is respected today. Everybody would have blamed him. Everybody would have called him a selfish person who broke his vow. Nevertheless, it would have saved the fate that the Kuru clan had to face. It would have prevented the Niyoga. It would have prevented the Mahabharata war. But the point is, it has to happen that way because the Dwapara was giving way to Kali Yuga. The Bharavatarana had to happen. The Yuga had to be annihilated. What was common to the Dwapara Yuga had to be annihilated. So the war could not be stopped in any case. So that's fine. As far as Dhritarashtra is concerned, see, he was an incarnate of Asura. Not just Dhritarashtra. The Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra, Dushasana, all of them, the Mahabharata clearly says, they were all Amshavataras of different Daityas and Danavas. Just like the Pandavas were Amshavataras of different Devatas. So Kurukshetra war is a war between the Devasura war, which is cosmically played always. It is a human, at the human plane, they were playing that war through Pandavas and Kauravas. Now, even if you keep that aside, Dhritarashtra was completely attached to his son. He would always use his veto, but in favor of his son. Putra moha. Any form of moha creates delusion, and that is what happens in the case of Dhritarashtra. So he used veto, but always in a way that is favorable to his son. He did not care about dharma. He cared only about retaining power in his family. So, and he also had this inferiority complex in the sense that he was the eldest son, but because of his blindness, he was sidelined and Pandu was made the king, right? So he
Yes,
had that grudges deep down. So he wanted his son to become the heir to the throne. Okay, so
thanks, sir. One more thing. In between humanity, nationality, and religion, how do we connect and place these three, humanity, nationality, and religion?
always anchor yourself to dharma, because dharma connects everything. It connects all humans. It connects all beings. It goes beyond humans. It connects us to all beings or to the nature around us. And of course, that means that it connects us to our nation also. It connects us to everything. You know, what is dharma? Dharma is the teachings of the self. What is the ultimate teaching of the self? Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyeva anupashyati, says Ishavasya Upanishad. The ultimate goal of life is to perceive all the beings as within one's own self and one's own self within all beings. So this is the grand vision of Sanatana Dharma. And this is the vision of relationship with ourselves, and ourselves with entire universe, entire Srishti. The Manusmriti begins with rishis asking Manu to teach about Dharma. But he does not directly start with the teachings of Dharma. He does not start with some form of commandments. He starts with a narration of Srishti. How the whole universe was created, how Brahma was created, how the Devatas were created, how the Manushyas, Rishis, Gandharvas, Yakshas, everything was created. So this is the teaching of interconnectedness. So this is interconnectedness goes beyond, much beyond humanity. And within there, of course, the nation and everything comes, because in the Hindu perspective, while for performing dharma, the individual is the smallest unit, but individual is never considered in isolation. He's always considered in relation to his kutumba, to his village, to his community, to his larger community, to his varna, his jati, his kula, and his rashtra. And then the Manushya Dharma also comes, right? I hope this answers. I think there are one or two comments also. Let me just see if there are any questions. Who ensures that discretion is validated in present day? Earlier, there were mutts and gurus and local gurukulas. See, you cannot get outside validation when you are living your everyday life, right? You face situations every day. You cannot always go to somebody and ask whether this is correct or not, everyday basis. You have to get the discretion through your own self-effort. Having said this, we do have gurus, we do have acharyas with whom we can take advice about major decisions in our life. For example, we have the Sringeri Peetham, the great Shankaracharyas are sitting there, who are always there to guide us, to help us. We can visit them, take their guidance. There are many such acharyas there. Our own sampradaya acharyas are there. Different sampradayas, different acharyas. But most importantly, we can learn from the reason we should study Itihasa Puranas is we can learn from the life of Bhagavan Rama, we can learn from the life of Krishna, from Yudhishthira, from the Pandavas. We can learn from those who failed as much as we learn from those who succeeded. We learn from the Danavas and Daityas what not to do as much as we learn from the Rama and Krishna what should be done, right? So that is how you do the things, right? The another question is, because of his pratigya, Bhishma did so many adharmas. Because of Karna's vow towards Duryodhana, he could not join his brother, the Pandavas, in spite of Krishna telling him to do so. Because of dharma connected to invitation for gambling game, that the time Yudhishthira could not restrain himself. Exactly, all these are complications, and these complications are being given for our purpose. To see where our heroes failed, so that we don't fail again, we learn from them. To see how our heroes succeeded. So in spite of greatest difficulties, Yudhishthira did not take a short way out. He realized he failed, he made a mistake, he lost self-control in gambling. But he knew that if he has to succeed, if he had to take back what rightfully his, and take back through a means in which nobody can question him. It was not a bhiksha. When the first time he lost in the gamble, the Dhritarashtra gave him back everything. But that was a bhiksha. Nobody would have considered him a rightful king. That is why he went and gambled again. People will think that why did he go do it like that? He did it because he wanted to win it back in a rightful way, Kshatriya way. And he did not right away, Bhishma gave him options to consider 13 years as 13 days by some anukalpa, some nyaya. He refused. Why? Because if he did so, the Pandavas were not prepared to wage the war. Did Arjuna had all the divine weapons that he procured later? During the 13 years, Arjuna did great tapasya, got Pashupatastra. He went to Indraloka, got divine astras from Indra. The Shapa that he got from the Apsara proved as a blessing during Agyatavasa. Bhima went and with Rakshasa Kula through marriage with Hidimba. We don't realize that all these political happenings. Yudhishthira did intense tapasya to wipe out the papa karma generated by his adharma in the form of gambling, which caused his fall. Only when he was able to wipe out the karmic baggage, only then they were actually prepared to win the war. That was how they were able to get the divine blessing for the war, to win, through tapasya of the Yudhishthira. So there are so many things to learn. I think it is Prabhava. That is what the text say, Prabhava. It is not Prabhava. It's Prabhava means origination, creation. Prabhava means something enriching, something, creating new things. So that was one of the question. Okay. Any more questions? Anybody else?
I think no questions for today. We will close, and then tomorrow again we'll take more questions.
Yes, and tomorrow we will look into some tenets of Dharma, especially we look into Shila, because Mahabharata considers Shila to be very important character of Dharma, and we will look into some tenets of Shila, some other things, miscellaneous things. This will be again continuation of the Dharma Shastra sessions that we did. So with this I end. Thank you very much. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Okay, so now we will close with Prarthana and then Janaganamana. So let us request Surya Prakash Garu to chant Prarthana, please. I think you are in mute or what? Mute lo unnara. No, we are not hearing you. I think his voice is not clear, is not coming out. Okay. Somebody else? Saugandhi ji? Are you there?
Namaste, Guruji.
Okay. You continue with Prarthana, please. Are you there, Saugandhi?
Guruji, I am outside the house. I may not be able to say the
Okay,
prarthana.
okay,
Shall I read it, sir? Shall I read it out?
Yeah. Purushottam Rao garu.
स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्तां न्यायेन मार्गेण महीमहीषाः गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु काले वर्षतु पर्जन्यः पृथिवी सस्यशालिनी देशोऽयं क्षोभरहितः ब्राह्मणाः सन्तु निर्भयाः अपुत्राः पुत्रिणः सन्तु पौत्रिणः अधनाः सधनाः सन्तु जीवन्तु शरदां शतं सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् Om Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityurma Amrutam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudichyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sarve Janaः Sukhino Bhavantu Loka Samastaः Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Swasti. Thank you.
ధన్యవాదములండి పురుషోత్తమ
Namaskar.
పురుషోత్తం రావు గారు. Now let us recite national anthem. Shall I do it or Mukherjee garu meer chestara? Okay.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंग तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तब जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे जय हिंद.
Thank you. Thank you, Gautam ji.